They said family is where you feel at home. But what if the people at the table make you feel like a stranger? That night, at a simple family dinner, something happened that changed everything. This isn't just a story about rejection, it's about quiet strength, chocolate, and choosing yourself. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and just know someone doesn't want you there? Yeah, that's how it's always been with my mother-in-law. From the very first day I met her, there was this unspoken wall. She never said anything outright, but it was in her eyes. That quiet judgment. That stiff smile. You know the kind, they smile with their lips, but their eyes are cold. That was her. Still, I tried. God knows I tried. Every birthday, every Thanksgiving, every casual get-together, I showed up with a gift, a smile, and this naive little hope that maybe this time, she'd see me. Accept me. Include me. But she never really did. That night, it was supposed to be special. A family dinner. Nothing fancy, just all of us together at this cozy Italian place in town. The kind with dim lights, warm bread, and the kind of music that makes you want to stay longer. My husband had made the reservations. He was excited. And I was nervous. As usual. I picked out a soft blue dress. Not too flashy, not too plain. Just something nice. Did my hair. Wore the earrings she once complimented, hoping maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. When we arrived, everyone was already there. Her, my father-in-law, my husband's sister and her fiancé. They were mid-conversation, laughing about something I didn't catch. As I walked up, I smiled and said, "Hi," trying to sound cheerful, even though my stomach was tight with nerves. She looked at me. Just looked. No smile. No warmth. Just a nod. Like I was a stranger who'd accidentally walked into the wrong dinner. I sat down beside my husband. He squeezed my hand under the table like he always does when he senses I'm tense. The waiter came, handed out menus. Light chatter continued. I stayed quiet, sipping my water, smiling politely. Then, it happened. The waiter returned to take our orders. He went around the table, appetizers, mains, drinks. When he reached me, I opened my mouth to speak, but she cut in. "She's not with us," she said. Loud. Clear. Cold. The whole table fell silent. My husband froze. The waiter blinked, unsure if it was a joke. My sister-in-law looked down at her plate like she suddenly found her pasta very interesting. I laughed. A small, awkward, broken laugh. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked, thinking maybe I misheard. "She's not family," she said again, this time softer, but with that same steel in her voice. "She's just married in." It felt like the floor slipped under my chair. Like the walls were closing in. I looked at my husband, his jaw was tight, his eyes burning. But he said nothing. And in that moment, I felt completely alone. I wanted to cry. Or scream. Or disappear. But I didn't. Instead, I swallowed the lump in my throat, sat up a little straighter, and smiled. Of course, I smiled. That's what we do, right? We smile. We make it look easy, even when it's breaking us inside. Because sometimes, heartbreak doesn't come from big betrayals. Sometimes, it comes in the quiet, cold words of someone who's supposed to be family, but never chose you as theirs. And that night, she made sure I remembered that. I wish I could tell you it was a misunderstanding. That maybe she didn't mean it the way it sounded. But no. She meant every single word. The waiter had just arrived at our table, standing politely, holding a notepad in one hand and his pen in the other. His smile was warm, the kind of smile people in hospitality master. And just as he turned to me and said, "Ma'am, what can I get for you tonight?" She did it. My mother-in-law didn't even wait a second. She waved her hand, cutting across me like I didn't exist. "Don't take hers," she said firmly. "She's not with us." Just like that. 5 words. That's all it took to drain the color from my face, to make my heartbeat echo in my ears. There wasn't a gasp. There wasn't a laugh. Just silence. The kind that presses down on you like a heavy fog. The kind that makes your skin feel too tight, your breath too shallow. I looked around the table. No one said a word. My sister-in-law sipped her wine slowly, eyes fixed on her glass. My father-in-law gave a small cough and suddenly found something fascinating on the wall. Even my husband, he looked frozen. His hand was still resting near mine, but it didn't move. I tried to smile. Tried to act like maybe this was just her dry humor, a bad joke. So I said softly, "Wait, what?" And then came the second hit. "She's not real family," she added calmly. "She just married into it." That one cut deeper. There was no tone, no emotion. Just flat, matter-of-fact rejection. Like I was an afterthought. A guest that overstayed. A name not written on the family tree. I laughed. I don't know why. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe it was the sheer absurdity of it. "I married your son," I said, trying to keep my voice light. That makes me family, doesn't it?" She shrugged. "Not in my book." I wish I could tell you I stood up and gave some perfect, empowering response. But I didn't. I just sat there. My hands folded in my lap. My chest tight. I kept wondering, what had I done to deserve this? I wasn't loud. I wasn't rude. I showed up every time. I remembered birthdays. I helped clean up after dinners. I called her mom, even when it felt forced. But none of it ever counted. Because in her eyes, I wasn't blood. I was an outsider. An intruder wearing a wedding ring. And it didn't matter how much I loved her son. It didn't matter how many times I tried to be part of the family. To her, I would always be temporary. The waiter stood awkwardly, unsure whether to take the next order or run. I nodded at him politely, forcing a smile. "It's okay," I whispered. "I'm not hungry anyway." He gave me a sympathetic look, like he could feel the weight of what had just happened. And then he moved on, like the moment hadn't just split me open from the inside. I stayed quiet for the rest of the dinner. I didn't eat. I didn't speak. I just sat there, counting the minutes until I could leave without causing more drama. But inside me? Something had shifted. Sometimes, a moment doesn't just hurt, it changes you. It wakes you up. And that night, my eyes opened wide. I could feel the burn behind my eyes. You know, that heavy feeling that creeps up your throat when you're trying really, really hard not to cry in public. Especially not in front of her. My hands were trembling slightly under the table, but I kept them still. I stared down at the untouched menu, pretending to read it. I wasn't seeing anything. My ears were still ringing from her words, "She's not with us. Not real family." It would have been so easy to fall apart. To excuse myself, run to the bathroom, lock the door, and let it all out. I could have texted my husband from there, told him I was done, asked him to deal with the rest of the night. But I didn't. Somewhere, in the middle of that silence, something shifted inside me. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the years of pretending to fit in. Or maybe it was the realization that no matter how much I tried, some people just didn't want to see me. So instead of crying, I laughed. Not a loud laugh. Not the kind you do at a good joke. It was soft, almost amused. A little sad, a little sarcastic. But real. I looked up, met the waiter's confused eyes, and said, "Well, I guess it's a good night to start that diet, huh?" His face broke into an awkward smile. A few people chuckled nervously. My sister-in-law gave me a look, half embarrassed, half surprised. Even my husband looked at me, unsure whether to hold my hand or apologize right there. But I didn't need pity. I needed power. And humor became my armor. It was the only tool I had in that moment, and I used it. Because sometimes, laughing isn't about jokes. Sometimes, it's about survival. It's about telling the room, you didn't break me. It's about looking someone in the eye and saying, you don't get to decide my worth. I turned slightly in my chair, leaned back, and let myself breathe. Really breathe. That's when I made myself a quiet promise, right then, right there, in that crowded restaurant, sitting at a table I didn't feel welcome at. You don't get to write this night for me, I told myself. I will write my own story. And this chapter? It's going to be mine. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about her anymore. It was about reclaiming my space. About not letting someone's bitterness shrink me. So I stayed. I smiled. I chatted with the waiter when he came back. I asked questions about the pasta. I complimented the decor. And yes, I even made a few more jokes, just enough to keep the air from choking me. My mother-in-law didn't say another word to me all evening. But that was fine. Because I'd already taken back the power she tried to steal. Sometimes, the best way to handle cruelty is not with anger. Not with tears. But with quiet dignity. With grace. With a little humor that says, I see you, but I'm choosing joy anyway. That night, I didn't cry. I laughed. And that made all the difference. The clinking of cutlery, the soft hum of conversations, the low jazz music from the corner speaker, all of it felt distant. Like I was floating above the moment, watching a version of myself sit quietly at a table where she didn't belong. Everyone had gone back to eating. Talking. Pretending that what just happened hadn't happened. But I felt it. Deep in my bones. That hollow ache of rejection, and the strange, almost liberating clarity that followed it. I glanced around the restaurant. My eyes landed on the front counter, where the owner stood behind a small stack of receipts, chatting with the server. He looked kind. Not just polite, but the kind of kind you can feel even from across a room. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit there like an unwanted guest at my own life. So, I stood up. Pulled back my chair calmly, placed my napkin on the table. I could feel their eyes on me, especially hers. But I didn't look back. I walked across the restaurant, my heels clicking softly against the tile floor. Every step felt like it meant something. Like I was walking out of a role someone else had written for me, and into something of my own making. I reached the counter, took a breath, and smiled. Hi, I said to the owner. We don't know each other, but do you happen to have a table for one? Preferably for someone who just got exiled by her in-laws? For a second, he just stared at me, blinking, trying to decide if I was serious. Then he laughed. Not a mocking laugh, a warm, surprised one. He tilted his head and said, you know what? I got just the spot for you. I almost teared up. Not because I was sad, but because he saw me. Just for a second, he saw past the awkwardness, the family politics, the table full of forced smiles. He saw a woman standing up for herself. And he honored it. He walked me to a small table by the window. It had a clear view of the street outside, little string lights above, and enough distance from the main crowd that I could finally breathe. He pulled out the chair for me like I was royalty. Best seat in the house, he said. I smiled. Tonight, it sure feels like it. And just like that, I had my own table. No drama. No tension. No whispered comments. Just me. Alone, but glowing. I sat down, exhaled, and felt my shoulders relax for the first time that evening. The waiter came over, same guy from earlier, still looking a little unsure. I smiled at him and said, don't worry, this time I am ordering. He laughed, nodded, and handed me a new menu. It's funny, isn't it? I had walked into that restaurant feeling like I needed their approval. Their acceptance. Their version of belonging. But here I was, at my own table, under soft lights, sipping sparkling water like a queen, and I realized, sometimes, the only seat you need is the one you claim for yourself. Not given. Not approved. Just taken. With quiet confidence. And it felt good. Really good. I didn't plan to order dessert. At first, I thought, just get through dinner, pay for your food, and leave with dignity. But as I sat there at my own little table, wrapped in warm light and the hum of soft music, something shifted again. I wasn't just surviving the night anymore. I was owning it. And if you're going to own something, do it right. With chocolate. I opened the menu, slowly flipped through the pages, and there it was. Sitting proudly at the bottom of the dessert section like it knew it was special, triple chocolate lava cake. Rich, gooey, unapologetically decadent. Served warm, with a scoop of Madagascar vanilla bean ice cream. Drizzled in dark chocolate sauce, and sprinkled with gold-dusted cocoa powder. It wasn't just dessert. It was a celebration. I waved the waiter over with a calm smile. "I'll have this," I said, pointing to it. The lava cake. Extra hot. Extra dramatic. He raised a brow, grinned, and said, "Coming right up." Just a few minutes later, the owner himself came over, holding a small tray with the dessert like it was some kind of crown jewel. The chocolate sauce shimmered under the light, steam rising gently from the warm center. He placed it gently in front of me and leaned in. "This one's on the house," he said quietly. "Not because of the drama, but because of your guts." I smiled. Not just with my lips, but with my whole being. There's something about being seen, isn't there? Not pitted, not mocked, just seen. Recognized for your quiet strength. Your ability to sit alone, smile anyway, and still choose sweetness. I picked up my spoon, took the first bite, and let me tell you, it was heaven. Warm, rich, soft in the middle, with the kind of flavor that makes you close your eyes for a second and forget everything else. But I didn't forget everything else. Because when I opened my eyes, I saw her. My mother-in-law. Still sitting at the family table across the restaurant. Her fork paused mid-air. Her eyes locked on me. I could feel the burn of her stare, like 1,000 tiny needles on my skin. But I didn't look away. I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Took another slow, delicious bite, let the chocolate drip just slightly down the side of the spoon, and enjoyed every second of it. Because here's the truth, some victories are loud. Others? They're soft. Sweet. Served warm on a plate, with a free scoop of vanilla. She had tried to exclude me. To humiliate me. To remind me of where I didn't belong. But all she really did was push me toward a better table. A table where I could laugh. Where I could breathe. Where the dessert was good and the company, me, was even better. That night, I didn't win by fighting back. I won by refusing to shrink. By sitting tall, ordering dessert, and letting the sweetness melt away the bitterness she tried to serve me. And that was the real revenge. That night didn't end with fireworks. There was no dramatic apology. No sudden realization from the family. No teary hugs across the table. It ended quietly. I paid for my drink, left a generous tip, and thanked the owner again for his kindness. He nodded with that same knowing smile, like he understood more than he let on. As I walked past the family table on my way out, I felt the weight of their eyes. Some were curious. Some were uncomfortable. One pair, hers, was still cold. But I didn't look away. I didn't speed up. I didn't shrink. I walked tall, heels clicking softly across the tile like punctuation marks in my final sentence. Because that night, something shifted forever inside me. I had spent so much time trying to fit in, to earn a seat at their table, to win over the people who made me feel like a guest in my own family. But somewhere between that cruel remark and that warm lava cake, I realized. You don't always need to be invited. Sometimes, you need to invite yourself into your own power. Sometimes, you need to say, "This space is mine, whether you like it or not." And do it with grace. Not anger. Not revenge. Just presence. Just dignity. I used to think that standing up for yourself had to be loud. That you had to yell to be heard. But now I know, sometimes, strength is in the quiet. In the way you carry yourself. In the way you smile even when your heart is bruised. Sometimes, the only armor you need is humor. A little joke. A little sarcasm. A little sparkle in your eye that says, "I see what you're doing. But I'm still choosing joy." And yes, sometimes, that armor comes covered in chocolate drizzle. That night, I didn't just survive a dinner. I learned something. I learned that I am allowed to make space for myself, even if no one else offers it. I learned that being alone at a table is not the same as being lonely. And most importantly, I learned that no one gets to define my worth. Not my in-laws. Not anyone. I define it. I write my own story. And I'll never again let someone hold the pen. So to anyone out there who's ever felt excluded, whether at a dinner table, in a family, in a friendship, hear me when I say this. You don't have to beg for a seat. You don't have to prove your value to people who refuse to see it. Make space for yourself. Like your own corner. Order dessert. Smile anyway. Because grace is the kind of power they can never take from you. And humor? It's your shield. Your crown. Your silent "I'm still standing." Thanks for listening to my story. And remember this, whatever your mother-in-law says. Never skip dessert.